Well, we have, over the course of since 2018, we've been building relationships, and that just goes back to show, how easy it is once you start building those relationships, but with brokers, with other investors, and everything in between. And one of the brokers that I've been to a couple meetups with and been slowly working with, and I'll give a shout out to him. He actually has his own podcast, Mike Glaspie. But he's out of Fayetteville, North Carolina. He's also prior military. He brought us, we had a 13 unit deal prior to that one, to the 16 unit, and he brought us that one. And just by building that relationship and him understanding what we were capable of, and most importantly, that we can actually close, he started bringing us off. Well, I don't know if they're off market, but pretty close to off market deals, like right as they hit the market. So that's how we found the deal. We didn't do much digging. It was more just building those relationships.
Welcome to Real Estate Deal Closers with Anette, Talie, where we focus on the deals. Our guests are real estate closers who will share in detail the whole process from finding a deal to closing it, as well as strategies and tips to help you do the same. Here is your host, Anette, Talie.
Welcome to another episode of Deal Closers. I am your host, Anette, Talie, and today I am very excited to have Chris and Ashton Levarek. Did I say it right?
Perfect. That's great.
Welcome, guys.
Thank you for having us.
so much.
Let me tell you a little bit about them. They are brothers, if you don't know. So let me tell you about Chris. He is the manager and co-owner of Valkere Investment Group, LLC. He coordinates the management structure of the company and offers a highly analytical skill set with which to implement company systems, define investment strategies, and provide profitable opportunities to lenders, clients, and company partners. A former firefighter, a veteran of the United States Airforce, and network operations team leader, Chris has earned several education accolades. BS Computer Information System in Arizona University in 2012, Associates in International Trade, University of Montpellier, France, with years of project management in the fast-paced information technology world, as well as the relationship-building networking that comes with the territory. Chris has proven track record of success across multiple venues. He lives in Phoenix, Arizona since 2010 with his wife, Jamie, and they are happy parents of a healthy boy. Congrats. Now let me tell you about Ashton. He is the co-owner, manager, and investor of Valkere Investment Group, LLC. Ashton acts as the project and acquisitions manager. He provides in-depth market research, ground-level expertise, resources, and network facilitation to ensure the investment opportunities they offer build equity and maximize profitability for their clients, lenders, and team. As an Airforce Special Operations Pararescue-Jumper and Sniper, wow, and a special warfare team leader, Ashton is no stranger to intelligence analysis, mission planning, and execution. Detail-oriented and driven to succeed, Ashton brings 20 years of SOF, Special Operations Forces, experience to bear upon the investment market. In addition, Ashton has received a Bachelor's of Science in Sports Health and Science in an associate's degree in personal recovery. Ashton is the father of 2 girls, and with his wife Vivian currently live in Portland, Oregon. Oh, so you are not in the same city, guys.
No.
So a lot of team calls like this one.
Oh yeah, weekly. Team challenges, time challenges, yeah.
That is awesome. So guys, tell me, how did you get into real estate?
Sure.
Chris, you want to start?
Ashton. Okay, yeah, I'll start. So about 2018, I started getting into bigger pockets. I started just exploring other retirement options. We had a dip in the stock market, and my 401k kind of dropped by like $5,000 in 1 week, and it kind of shocked me that I'm putting all this money aside, and all of a sudden it just boop, goes away within a week. And so I started looking more into real estate. I started getting on bigger pockets, and then I started talking with Ashton. He had very similar, you know, things he was seeing in the market, and reasons for having something that was bigger and longer lasting than just a 401k. And so we started talking about investing in some kind of property in North Carolina, because he was actually in North Carolina at the time. And so we just we got together, started looking at duplexes, and we looked at Durham, North Carolina, and we ended up picking a property out there, and just kind of growing from there. But it started with a duplex and just the need and the desire to build more than just a 401k option. So
that's awesome that you both were kind of thinking the same thing, and then that you can execute it together.
Yeah, it's interesting, the timing, right?
Yeah. And I would add, like, I actually was introduced to the whole concept of house hacking and multifamily investing back in 2016. And I was talking to some guy, this is kind of weird story, but we were out in the desert. This is on a deployment, and sitting underneath a helicopter yelling at each other, you know, just waiting for something to go do something. And he's talking about how much money he's making off of his 20 properties. And this guy was lower ranking than me. And I thought, man, this is, how the heck are you doing that? And he gave me all these notes, but I didn't act on it until 2018 when my brother brought it up, because at 2018, I was about 2 years out from retiring from the Airforce. And I didn't have any huge plans. I mean, you can't really recoup your retirement plan until much later, as far as like a lot of your investments. And I have a family and everything, so I was looking for my next step after I got out of the military. And then when Chris brought that up, it just made sense. I'm like, man, this all sounds really familiar. And I look back at my notes from 2016, and we just jumped in from there. We started learning everything we could, and like Chris said, we bought 2 duplexes. I think we must have made like 6 or 7 offers prior to that, though. Terrible deals, but you learn.
How long did it pass between when you had this first conversation about why don't we do this together and to the time that you bought the first duplex?
I think that is really key. So I think a lot of people sit on the information that they get, and yes, I did sit on it from 2016. But when Chris and I both decided to do it, my wife and I made a 90-day resolution to get a house get something under contract in 90 days. And then when I brought that up to Chris, he jumped on board, and so we did it we literally got it within the 3rd month. So 90
days resolution. I like that.
Yeah, a lot of that came, I don't know where you got it from, Ashton, but Brandon Turner on Bigger Pockets has a 90-day program that he kind of puts out a lot on those webinars. And I saw that. In fact, for me, like before that even, I probably spent a good 3 months, kind of doing my own. It takes me a little bit to get going, and I was doing my own little research education into it, more reading from Bigger Pockets. And then when we kind of came together, that's when we acted really fast. We knew, okay, we want to do this pretty fast, and we just hit it. So yeah.
That is awesome. Yes, because, I always hear people saying, I don't know where to start. Like, there's so many things that I have to do, and I don't know what to do exactly. And I always say, just like start with one thing. Just do one thing.
Yeah.
And then once you complete that one, you're going to feel accomplished, and then you go to the next thing. And even if you don't know everything else, once you do that one thing, then you're going to feel more confident to do the next thing and the next thing. So It's just like you just need to start with whatever step that you can at the time. Just start with whatever you can, and then you will go to the next step.
Yeah. And I think, you're absolutely right. I like that, the stepping analogy, because every step you take will illuminate the next one for you. So as soon as you take that first step, you'll see where you need to be next. You can't say, I want to be a millionaire, and then go from here to there without looking down and seeing the next natural step, right? And I think having that committing to doing that is very important. I think a lot of people miss out on committing to something. They're like, well, if it doesn't work out, I'll do this, and they always have they can back out easily. But if you really set up a commitment and then start taking those steps, there's no way you'll fail. Even if you have a little misstep here and there, you're going to keep moving forward because you're committed. So.
Absolutely.
The Deal.
All right, guys.
Yeah.
So what deal are we going to talk about today?
Chris, you want to answer?
Yeah, sure. So today we're going to talk about our most recent deal. We closed January 21st. It was a apartment syndication. So it was in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and it was a 16 unit, 16 townhomes, 2-bed, 2.5 bath.
Awesome. So they are all attached to each other, or how many groups of buildings?
Yes.
Also,
Two
So
buildings.
yeah, yep.
Yeah.
awesome.
Two
All right.
two buildings, yeah, 8 each. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay. So 2 buildings. Awesome. All right. So how did you find this deal?
Well, we have, over the course of since 2018, we've been building relationships, and that just goes back to show, how easy it is once you start building those relationships. But with brokers, with other investors, and everything in between. And one of the brokers that I've been to a couple meetups with and been slowly working with, and I'll give a shout out to him. He actually has his own podcast, Mike Glaspie. But he's out of Fayetteville, North Carolina. He's also prior military. He brought us, we had a 13 unit deal prior to that one, to the 16 unit, and he brought us that one. And just by building that relationship and him understanding what we were capable of, and most importantly, that we can actually close, he started bringing us off. Well, I don't know if they're off market, but pretty close to off market deals, like right as they hit the market. So that's how we found the deal. We didn't do much digging. It was more just building those relationships.
Awesome. And tell me a little bit about that, because I think that's one of the things that I struggle with, building relationships with brokers, because I started with duplexes and I started using my realtor to to deal with that part of it, and now I am starting to do the reaching out to the brokers, and it's still every time that I do a phone call, I'm so nervous.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what are your secrets? How do you build that relationship?
Well, I think Chris and I, we're not co-located, so we're building different networks across, different areas. But I think for me, one of the biggest things is a face-to-face. Phone calls and emails are great. I think your podcast is probably going to crush it just because you can do that face-to-face talking, and it brings that credibility. But for me, I don't have a podcast. We don't have a podcast. So one of the things I focus heavily on is actually meeting brokers, meeting investors, because that builds that credibility, that builds that personality, that relationship that carries over into every deal that you do. So, and Chris, I don't know if you want to talk on that as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I think we have the same challenges as well as you just mentioned. The market's really hot right now, so brokers are going to work with people they know who can close, and often who they have existing relationships already with versus someone new they don't know anything about. So if you're getting into the market now, you have to figure out, okay, how can I differentiate myself? And it doesn't necessarily need to be experience. It just has to be, maybe you do a face-to-face, maybe you say the right things, maybe you show you're committed, maybe you just form that relationship over something else, maybe you talk about family, maybe you talk about kids, and you form that connection, and then you get into more of the apartments. But if you just come up from a personal or a business perspective, there's a lot of people doing it right now, so it's going to be challenging to separate yourself and really show that you can close over someone else, or you're a reliable contact. So I would say, yeah, it's a relationship building game, and you just have to figure out, how can I separate myself, and whether that might be personal, that might be forming some other connection face to face, or going to dinner with as a couple's dinner with their wife and your husband, and something like that. So options.
Yeah.
So are you local to this broker specifically?
I was stationed. Well, I retire on May 1, and I moved my family out to Portland, Oregon. So that's where I technically live, but I'm still in North Carolina. And so when I did that, when I was there, I built a lot of those relationships by going to meetups, by having dinners, lunches, coffees, stuff like that, with other brokers, investors, and so on. Wholesalers, that's another great way as well. But yes, so I was local at the time. Now I'm not, but it's definitely helped being able to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. So let's get back to the deal. So your broker brought it to you. So it was
Yes.
what was it listed for at that when he brought it to you?
I believe it started at 1.1 million or 1.2, something like that. It was, yeah. And we were able to get it down to 970 after a couple back and forth. So 970,000.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
So how did you negotiate this reduction in the price?
Well, I mean, there was multiple factors. We went, so there was a lot of deferred maintenance. That was a big one for us, right? When you're buying something, we want a value add property, but obviously you want a value add property that's, you don't want to pay more for it than what it's currently worth, right? And so that's the big thing. So we were about to, a lot of the HVACs needed to be repaired. There was a lot of like little things that just needed to be repaired, some pest control. There was some siding that needed to be repaired. So after we did the walkthrough, so I personally took 2 days and walked through the property with our contractors, with our property manager, got their opinions, got the quotes from the contractors, and we were able to present that to the seller through our broker, obviously, but to the seller and show him why it was worth much less. So that brought that down. And in fact, we were able to get it after when we got it under contract, it was for 970,000. When we finally closed, it was for 960,000. So.
Oh, okay. So
actually, let me jump in really quick. It was actually purchase was 960. We got it for 950. So just.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It actually, while you're thinking 970, it actually appraised for 970.
That's right. You're right. Yeah.
Also, it appraised higher. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm making the numbers right here. So if you get it for 950 for 16 units, you got it for 59,000 per unit.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And what are the rents on these two bedroom, 1.5 bedroom?
2 bedroom, 2.5 bath. They're 2 floors. So the nice thing about that is it opens up what you can do with it. So you could have people sharing rooms, or you could have a family. You can have a family living in something like that. But the rents we're targeting are 800 per unit, and we're already listing one actually as a premium, even in the first year for 825. So we were actually targeting 800 rents in the second year. We're still in the first year, of course, because we just got it. But there were rents when we got it, they were around 600. A lot of them. Yeah.
Yeah, I think average rent when we purchased it was at 620 or 615, the average across the board. But people were paying as low as 590. So.
Oh wow, the numbers look awesome.
Yeah.
And so, what did you have to do inside the apartments to get them to be able to bump the rent almost $200?
Sure. I think we spent around $4,000 so far per unit. So depending on how bad the carpet was, each unit is going to get kind of a different approach. We didn't want to go redo everything if we didn't need to, because actually the 800 rents are around market. So it wasn't necessarily like we were shooting for turning it into a luxury property. We were actually just taking it to market, redoing, adding some value in the units, and then getting the value that way. So all we did, what we do, just basic. If the carpets were bad in a central area, we would put wood plank, vinyl flooring, redo some of the bathrooms, some backsplash on the kitchen, better lighting, repaint, and then we had exterior light renovations as well. Is that about it, Ashton?
Yeah, that's about it. I think there will be some appliances being replaced, but everything else is just deferred maintenance around the property. So cleaning it up because they had a trash problem, cleaning it up, getting rid of pests. There were some pest control issues, and then some peeling siding, some leaking gutters, stuff like that. That we're just it's just deferred maintenance. We're just taking care of that. Something that the last owner didn't keep up on, and really that's an easy way to show that you're adding value to the tenants. And I mean, that's our goal, right? We're not just trying to make money off the backs of renters. We're also trying to provide something that's actually worth living in, so a decent place for that income level in that neighborhood.
Awesome. Is it what type of asset is this one? An A, B, C?
It's C class. It's probably one of the nicer C classes we've got. We've stayed around the C class mostly because it's the nice purchase entry point. for us at least. But this has been, I would say, even like almost B minus, C plus. It's definitely nicely painted. It's got those nice kind of Eastern, I would say Southeastern colors, you know, the bright blues and the pink doors and that kind of stuff. So it really looks nice from the exterior, and even the interior. You know, I would live there. It's not like some places that we bought were pretty run down when we got them. This one is actually one of the nicer ones. So
there, yeah.
Awesome. And so, how was the interaction with the seller? Were they very reluctant to take the discounts, or were they kind of like, yeah, you know, I know, I'm assuming they're going to sell it for less?
He was actually, if I remember correct, I was told he's actually a broker himself. He's a real estate agent himself, and so he understood. I mean, he knew, and I think one of the good things that worked for us also was, you know, he was trying to do a 1031 exchange, so he was on a time crunch.
Right.
So he knew the number he had to hit, and he knew the date he had to hit it by, and so I think that definitely played into our favor, and we weren't trying to undercut him in any way. But when we came back to the table and said, "Hey, look, you know, these repairs still need to be done," and on top of that, if we do all those repairs on top of this price you're giving us, it's not going to make sense for us, you know. And so he understood that, and it really wasn't that big of a deal. He had just replaced, I think, I don't know, 4 HVACs, so that helped. Yeah. So it wasn't too difficult to talk with him and get that down.
It helped too. Our lender knew him personally.
Before submitting an LOI, or did you submit an LOI and then had to change the price?
We submitted an LOI, but we also submitted a contract like within a couple of days, because our broker had been talking to him, and you know, he came back to me. He's like, "Hey, look, he's already accepted a verbal at this price," and so we submitted the LOI just because that's what we normally do. And then, like, the very next day, the contract came and we signed that and sent it out.
Awesome. All right. Okay, so how did you fund this deal?
Yeah, so for this one, it was pretty traditional. We did a non-recourse loan, a recourse loan. Sorry, wish it was non-recourse. But so we went with a lender we've been using in the past, and we just got a commercial loan, 75% funded by a 20-year amortized. It was pretty good. It was 4.25% interest, and so we just had to come up with 25% down and the renovations and closing costs. So for that, we did a 504 syndication. So it's you know, 506B and 506C are pretty common.
Right.
You'll hear about a 504 if you are working purely with non-accredited investors. So if you have a lot of friends and family, it's a smaller deal. The advantage is you don't have to get accredited investors. You can take investments of, you know, really low amounts if you wanted to. The downside to a 504, though, is you do have to deal with state regulations. So say you get an investor from New Jersey, you have to comply with New Jersey state regulations for investing in syndications. Whereas like a 506B or 506C, you still have to comply, but you're not actually complying at the state level. You're complying with Regulation D in its entirety. And so it'll just be a little less stringent on the regulations there. But so we raised about $400,000 for the 25% down and the renovations. And it was about 14 different investors. And that's how we did it.
Is this the first time that you do a syndication, or did you do a syndication before?
Technically this is our first syndication, but I would add every purchase we've made up to this point has been a JV, you know, joint venture. We've worked with other investors. So to say, you know, it's new to us. Yes, the syndication, the whole structure, that was new, but finding investors and working with other people's money, that wasn't necessarily new, you know, in that sense. So.
And it builds on each other too. Our first deal we did was with a private lender at an interest rate, and that same private lender invested in the 16 units. So
right.
That's awesome.
Yeah, relationships, right?
Yes. How did you structure it? Did you do a preferred interest rate, or how did you structure the deal for the syndication part?
Sure. Yeah, we did a preferred return. It was a 5-year hold. We did a refinance in year 3 projected. So what that did, doing this refinance in year 3 gave about 64%, 62% of investor capital back, and everyone returns go up, cash on cash returns go up, of course, when there's less money left in the deal. But also, it gives the opportunity to investors to be able to use that capital for a new deal if they want to in year 3, and go do whatever else they want to do with their family or their life, whatever else has come up. But we like that refinance kind of in the middle. But yeah, we did 8% preferred return, and then it was a 70-30 split after that. So
awesome. All right. So you kind of mentioned a little bit of the strategy. You're going to refinance at year 3, and after that, what are you doing?
Looking to sell in year 5.
Year 5?
Yeah. So we do that, the reversion cap rate kind of idea where, so if we bought it, around a 7, we have it selling at a 7.5 cap rate, and that works in year 5, and that gets the return that we wanted for investors. But doing that, we don't expect the market to be exactly the same as it is right now, obviously. So the idea is if you buy it at 7, make sure you add a little buffer. You want to sell at a higher cap rate, not necessarily, if you get to sell it at a 6.5 or lower than what you purchased for, that's great, because you're going to make more money, going to make the sellers happy. But if you're going to buy something and you have a sale projection, so we do in year 5, typically you want to add it in that extra 0.5 or whatever basis point, so to get, to protect yourself a little. And so that's what we did. Year 5 will sell, and everyone will recoup that remaining 40% investor capital, and the additional returns will come off the back end.
So now an important question: how is it to work with your brother?
More importantly,
the opinion.
I think, well, I'll say real quickly, more importantly, both our wives work in our company. So we have every Sunday, 7:30 Arizona time, at least for me. It depends where everybody is. Some are East Coast. Ashton might be in North Carolina. His wife, Vivian, is in Oregon, all the time because she's with the kids. My wife here is in Arizona. So when we all get together at 7:30, it's fun to work with family. There's challenges, but it's a blast. Yeah.
I would point out, we had, so my brother and I, Chris and I, had a good relationship for a long time. I know there's a lot of talk about working with family and how tough it can be, but Chris and I have been really close over the years. And I think it was a natural progression. I had always wanted to work with my family. I think it can be a very powerful tool, so long as you understand that it isn't always all about money. And if one person's only focused on all the money, you're going to run into something. So having your goals aligned is really big. It doesn't matter if it's family or partners or friends, whatever. Like, so long as your goals aligned. And for us, that's really what it was. That financial freedom, being able to spend more time with our families, that was our goal. And at the beginning, Chris and I, it was just Chris and I. It was just him and I. And the girls both had their own jobs, their own careers. And so it was never like a goal for us, like, hey, get the girls to quit their jobs and start working for the company. That was not the goal. Although we did pitch it several times. I know I did. I don't know about you, Chris, but
yeah.
And then as things progressed, they saw that we were working, and they get along really good, which is awesome. Because we've talked about it on like Bigger Pockets, and I've seen the comments that people say, oh, it's going to fall apart, whatever. But I think if you align your goals together and really, really sit down and talk about where you want to go, there's so much power in working together. So.
Yeah, I agree. But I think it also has to be like you said, the goals have to be aligned and the personalities have to be aligned.
That's a great point, and that's something we got to later. And I can't remember who suggested it, but we did the Tony Robbins. What is it called? Disc profile. Yeah. And it was interesting, and I think both of us knew this at the start, but Chris and I are very opposite personalities. So, and then of course we got our wives to do it too. But it really helped in defining roles. Although we had kind of taken those roles in the beginning anyway, but the DISC profile really solidified and showed what your strengths were and what you should probably be focusing on anyway. And so if you're trying to do everything by yourself in your own business, I mean, that's great. Good on you. But the sooner you can branch out and focus on one thing in that business, the more success you'll have at that one thing, And Chris, please feel free to weigh in. But I think that's very powerful, knowing your strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, I would recommend the DISC profile across the board. We use it with everyone. I just got Olivia, an assistant for our business, to me, and I did a DISC profile with her. And the great thing is when someone else is telling you what you are like, you don't take as much, I guess, if your family's telling you, I think you should do this role, you might take kind of offense. You're like, I'm not like that. I want to do this. I want to do that. But if Tony Robbins is telling you, or this profile is telling you, then you might be more willing to be like, oh, you're right. I do that. So I'd use it with everyone we are reaching out to. So whether a virtual assistant or hiring or branching out, we partner with someone on the 16 unit, another syndicator operator. And, we do the same with all our partners just because it really gives a good aspect on where they'll fit in your team. And then nobody really takes offense to understanding how better they'll work at the company. So.
All right.
Expert tips.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about 3 expert tips. And today you wanted to talk about productivity. So tell me your 3 expert tips.
Well, the 3 things we want to focus on, well, first is focus, time blocking, and then we each, follow a morning routine. And I can speak from my experience, and then, please, Chris, weigh in. But I think focus is first and foremost. Like, you have to be focused. You have to know what you're going after, what you're doing, and why you're doing it. And then, and that really just comes with sitting down and writing your goals. And so being able to focus on where your end state is, your 1 year, 3 year, 5 year goal, right? So by doing that, then you know what you need to focus on each day, and that comes into the time blocking. So,
but let me
right.
Let me interrupt you, because at the beginning, you know that you wanna invest in real estate, but there's so many different things that you can do in real estate. So
absolutely, yeah.
You don't, like, at the beginning, it happened to me, like, you don't know where to focus. Like, there's, you're like, oh, I can do this, but then the next day you learn on bigger packets about this, and I'm like, oh, I could do that, and then the next day is like, oh, wait, I can do this too. So how do you get to that point where you say, okay, this is it, and now I can focus on that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say what helps me out is, because I've heard this too, the thing about bigger pockets, it's great because you get so many different stories coming in, right? The bad side to that is, like you said, you're chasing the next shiny object as it comes along. What I found helps me is finding a mentor or a podcast that is, I listen to bigger pockets to get different aspects, but I listen to other podcasts that are very centrally focused on a singular type of investing strategy. And if that aligns with my personality and I really like the listener, I find that's a good way to latch on to a type of investing strategy. If you really find and you gravitate towards this person and this mentor, it could be a friend, a mentor, whatever. I would say if they're jiving with your personality and you like what they're doing, why not just follow that same investment strategy, because you're already got that connection forming. And so I do that. I found 1 to 2 podcasts max I listen to that really associate with what we're trying to do, because otherwise you do get distracted a lot, and there's multiple ways to skin the cat. So I find a mentor that you gravitate towards and do what they're doing.
And then
focus.
Yeah, I would also say one of the things that really helped me, and Chris will probably laugh, but like, I'm one of those guys that I will jump at everything because I love to do things, and I love to have a goal, and I love to go after that goal, full bore. And so if you write down, there's a really good book, and I'll say it's called The Vivid Vision, and the author is escaping me right now, but that one really helps, because if you're having trouble finding where you should focus, you need to figure out what your end goal is. And he's huge on, looking down the pipe. So where do I want to be in 5 years? Where do I want to be in 10 years? And you write down, he wants you to write down every aspect of that. So in 5 years, I want to have this office. I want to be able to eat this breakfast and live here. And I want to be able to spend this much time with my kids. And oh man, I can hear the kids running through the house, and you get so vivid on where you want to be in that moment. Then you work back from there, and so is flipping houses going to get me there? And then you can kind of like look at that and or actually, let me back up, looking at what you need financially to get there, what you need, how much time you need, and then how will you create that time? And so for me, I didn't want to create another job. So it was easy. Like I put down everything I wanted to do. I wanted to travel more. I want to be home for my kids, because in the military, I've been gone a lot. I'm gone right now. So, but so knowing where you want to be, and then knowing what kind of what kind of income you need to support that, and then working back from there. And so the steps, I think, fall into place at that point. I mean, yes, you look at all these strategies, flipping, house hacking, to syndicating, to, all these different strategies, and no one is better than the other. Each one is a pick your own adventure. But for me, I didn't want to create another job. I wanted to be a passive investor. I wanted to make my money work for me, so that I could have that time, right? That's the big thing you'll never get back. I mean, we can spend all the money in the world, and you'll never get that time back. And so time was it for me. And so knowing that I wanted to create more time as the passive investment route really keyed in. I really keyed in on that. And then we also read that book, Traction, and that really helped outlining where our company can go. So I don't know.
I'm writing
That's
down all
just
these names.
Yeah. yeah.
And
We read a lot.
Harold wrote, Vivid Vision.
Right. Yes. Cameron Harold. Yep.
Cameron.
Really good book.
Was it Gene Wickman that did Traction?
I think so, and I think he partnered with someone else on it too. But yeah, the Traction book is really good for setting up your company, even if it's just you. Even if you're going to sit down once a week and have a meeting with yourself, they help you outline your meeting. They help you put the structure for your company, what kind of positions you need in our company. Those two books were really good in outlining the focus, what you should focus on to be successful, for me personally. Yeah.
Perfect. All right, so let's go to the next one, time blocking, right?
Yeah, Chris, you want to weigh in on that? I know you crush time blocking.
Yeah, I really like time blocking. I think we both have, well, I know we both have families. We both have other events and things that are requesting our time all the time. Whether that's family or W-2 job, we both work. Ashton's still in the military. I'm in charge of 6 people for a bank, IT operations. I do network and, all sorts of stuff. And so time blocking to get involved in real estate, or whether you're doing it in your normal job or whether just for family, if you don't set time aside for what you want to prioritize and what you want to focus on, it actually won't get done. I'm very familiar with this just because the one thing is another book that we highly recommend, and we like reading that one. But it talks a lot about time blocking, and especially if you want to do like deep intensive work or deep thought work. If you want to write a book, it's impossible unless you set aside time, 2 days a week, 3 days a week, daily, to get those kind of things done. They just won't happen. Everything's going to be pulling you in different directions. And in real estate, it's no different. If you don't spend the time to analyze X amount of properties per week, per month, or call X amount of brokers per week, per month, the true matter of fact is whatever is screaming the loudest will grab your time. So, and that could be your kid.
Or the easiest task instead of the hardest.
Very true. It's very true. And I think we often gravitate towards those easy tasks because we think we're actually winning by knocking them out. When in reality, they're not really.
My list, done.
Yeah. Oh, I read 5 emails today. Well, did those emails actually help you?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very common we just hit those easy things because we feel like we're doing something, but they're not really moving the needle. So really time blocking, just take time throughout the week, set certain areas that you have 20 minutes, 30 minutes, maybe it's 60 minutes if you're lucky, and set a task for that. If it's simply setting a time block, that's great. Take that 30 minutes on a Sunday night and set 30 minutes to time block your week. And already you've just done more than you could have done, just by trying to do it at random. So big on time blocking. I just wrote an ebook about 8,000 words, And I put it off probably for 12 months. I could never I'd make excuses. How do I have time to write? I have a 18-month-old kid. I have back then he was 7 months so I made excuses just like we all do. But the minute it changed for me was when I put, okay, an hour, Tuesdays and Thursdays a week. And it took me 2 months. It took me a while, but it was a lot faster than if I didn't time block at all.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. And you know what? I guess I was time blocking without knowing it now that you talk about it. When I wanted to get my license for architecture, it was 9 exams. And, most people, I did it right after school, but a lot of people at my office didn't do it for years. And I noticed that. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to study every day from 8 to whatever time I'm tired. And for a year, I did that every day from, 8 p.m. after dinner to midnight mostly. I studied, but then on the weekends, I wouldn't study. I had my weekend for myself, but every day I sat down and studied, and I got all my exams done in 1 year, which normally would take people like 5 years to go through all the exams.
Wow, that's awesome.
Really impressive, 9 exams.
Yeah, so, it was just like the persistence of just doing it. And then my husband would come and tell me all these stories, and I'm like, I'm studying. Like, okay. It took him a while to realize, like, when I'm studying, like, I don't need interruptions. And I did it in a year, which sounds like a long time, but it was like 9 really hard exams.
I bet. Yeah, that is impressive.
Well, there are plenty of people that don't time block or don't really put the time aside, and they'll take their whole life for something like that. They take 10, 20 years. I mean, I see it all the time, and I'm in IT, so and Ashton too. He's all in medical, and if you don't put time aside for certifications or tests or whatever, your life is just going to do whatever, and you're not going to get those things done. So you really have to make time for them and time block it and hold that time sacred. That's a big thing.
I noticed I am working with a planner, which I've never done. I don't know if you can see it, my planner here.
There you go.
And I got it, and I planned like the first month, and I noticed, I don't know if I think I am still accomplishing things, but like seeing it on your planner that you are actually doing it and checking it makes you feel so much better and realize how much you're doing as you're going. And like the last month I was bad. I didn't really do it. So I'm going to put it on my calendar. I'm just going to set an alarm to do it. Like, it's hard for me on Sundays, but I'll do like a weeknight and do my time blocking and planning, because I think it really gets you into the mood of getting stuff done and accomplishing things. And I can see the difference between when I did it and when I didn't do it. It was more scattered, like, what am I supposed to do tomorrow? Like, what appointments do I have versus like, I know exactly what I gotta do and the focus on like, what's the most important goal for today. And then you focus on that instead of the small things that don't really, give you any traction.
Yeah. And I would ask you, Annette, I would like to ask, when you started that year trying to get all those exams done, were you trying to get them done in 1 year?
My goal was to do 1 exam a month. Like,
okay, yeah.
I was like, okay, I actually scheduled the exam, right? Like, I decided, okay, I'm doing construction documents first, and I scheduled it. Because when you schedule it, you had to pay to reschedule. So I had now a deadline. So then I had to get it done because I don't want to waste money rescheduling.
Yes.
And so then I just, divided the course into, okay, I have 4 weeks and I need to, cover all this material in this time. And then I think the weekend before the exam, I would do some flashcards and stuff. And, but yeah, I got it. And then there were a couple of exams that were hard, like structures and physics and all that, where I took a course. So for that one, it took me more like 2 months. And then probably in between there, I don't know, maybe a couple of them took me more time. But yeah, it was done in a year. And then my husband did it in 6 months because he was doing freelancing at that time, and able to. The economy was doing not so good, so he had a lot of time in his hands. So I was like, you know what? Just focus on your exam, And he
Yeah.
did it in 6 months. And I was like, wow. And we both passed all the exams the first try. You know, I have
That is awesome.
Nice.
people that I know that they took several exams more than once.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
Yeah. So, and the reason I asked that, and I think this is very important, this just goes back to the first tip that we were kind of talking about, is your focus. You know, you had a goal, and I like Tony Robbins. He puts out a lot of good stuff. But one of the quotes he uses is, if you're not growing, you're dying. And then, you know, you could probably interpret that several ways. But I think the big one for me, the one I took away from that was, if you don't have a goal, you're not working towards something, you know. And a lot of people, that's what happens, right? You're in school, and you know you have such and such coming up, so you plan accordingly, and you take the actions necessary for that. But when you start something like real estate investing, people kind of look at it as a hobby, and that's where people fail, right? If you look at it like a job, like you'd get fired from your job if you didn't produce something. So I think for us, you know, making that 30-day commitment to get that first one under contract, that was huge, you know. So we had that focus. So we knew we need to be doing something to get that. And so we learned as much as we could. We, you know, put the time in, we time blocked, and it became, I don't want to say a second job, but yes, I mean, in a sense, it was a second job. We had a commitment to succeed. And so,
Not to mention, when you put an earnest money down of $30,000, you really don't want to fail.
yeah. And that's the great thing about that, right? If people are afraid to start, they need to, I think somebody says on one of the podcasts, maybe it was Brandon Turner, but like where you throw that thing out in the future and it pulls you towards that goal. And so making an offer and getting an offer accepted is one of those things, right? Because all of a sudden you're like, hey, we have $1 million property that just got accepted. What do we do now? You know, so like you learn very fast. There's another great one too, and I'm going to butcher it, but the work you do compresses and becomes more effective the less time there is to do it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole algorithm for that. And
I am
butchering it, I know.
a queen at that. Like,
Yeah.
I work so good when I have very little time. Like, if I have a lot of
Yeah.
time, like, let me just watch TV because I have time. And then I was like, oh my goodness, I don't have time. I'm going to get it done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would go back to that book, Traction and Vivid Vision. That's very good for that, because they have you do a 10-year, 5-year, 1 year, and then quarterly goals, and then, you know, like I have 90 days to do this. And when I do that, that's going to add to and build upon and help me reach my 1-year goal, which is going to help me reach my 5-year, and so on and so forth. So once you have that, you know, that's kind of pulling you. But then, yes, there's huge things that will, like making an offer, getting an offer, except those things will definitely propel you into that. But I think that's a good start, you know. And then time blocking, it'll almost force you to time block, like it did for you, you know, trying to get your certification, your degree, and all that. So
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So then the last one, morning routine.
yeah, and
Sure. Take it.
we can both talk on this. We have, I guess we're a bunch of book nerds because I feel like we just keep quoting books, but The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod was a big influence on me there. Yeah, great book. And all he's talking about is time blocking and focusing. That's all he is. So you take that first time, or your first block of time in the morning, to really go over what you want your day to look like, and really focus on where you're going. And so if you know, he outlines all these successful people, and they all do it, from Oprah to, you know, Grant Cardone, to these people always get up in the morning. They have their routine, and usually revolves around, you know, he uses, savers. So some type of silence in the morning. So silence, meditation, prayer, or just thinking about, you know, a quiet time in your day before you start. So silence, affirmations, which, you know, a lot of people think that's hokey stuff, but if you look at what successful people are doing and you deny that their methods are working, I don't know. That seems ignorant. But so affirmations, visualizations, exercise, reading, and then scribing, and I think that stuff's huge. And I know I've been doing it over the years. I look back, I have several journals, and many of my counterparts might think that's kind of foo-foo, but I think when you write down what you want, you know, it solidifies it. And just like time blocking. You write down that time, you're going to do it. So yeah, I think that was a great book to read to help me solidify what I do in the morning. But I think from a very young age, I'd always done that. And I think everybody has a morning routine. But if you want that morning routine to be successful, so
productive.
What time do you wake up?
It depends. Usually when I'm home with the kids, I get up at 4:30. When I'm on a trip, it could be like 5, even 6, depending on what my schedule is, because I don't have to deal with my kids. But I love my kids. I'm just saying, you do have to set that time aside. And Chris, I know you do the same thing.
Yeah, so I'm up at 4:15, and that's really because
That's
my
not a
kid wakes up
competition.
so early. I'm getting 15 more minutes more productivity.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but if I don't wake up that early, then I don't get anything done because my kid is waking up so early right now because he's really young. So I wake up 4:15, and even before this, I did it, and I did reading already. I've written already. I've meditated. So it's a great way to start your day and get on track and reinforce what is your number one priority with that writing. So if you start your day writing down this is what my goals are and this is what's important, not only will that continue to stay strong in your day-to-day routine, but you'll know what you need to focus on for that day. And I think that a lot of people miss just that simple part when they start their day. They kind of forget like what's most important. And why am I waking up? And why am I doing this? And why am I going to work? And all of a sudden that routine just becomes almost like a slave routine. They're not excited about it. They don't know what they're doing it for. So just getting up with purpose through a morning routine really sets the tone, sets the day, and make sure you're progressing towards those goals that are most important to you. So.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that was good.
All right, guys. So where can people find you in social media, email? Share with us.
Sure. So we have a website. So it's www.valkeregroup.com. That's VALKERE group.com. And we're also on Instagram, Facebook, at ValkereInvestmentGroup.com. That's at ValkereInvestmentGroup.com. And we're all over. We're on LinkedIn. We're on Bigger Pockets. I post a lot on Bigger Pockets, so you'll probably see me on there if you check it out. And anything else, Ashton?
No, I mean, we go to meetups and stuff too, and we're always networking, but we're always looking for new people to work with. Somebody said this to me a while back, and I think it's such a great quote. Nobody's smarter than all of us. And so, you got to work together. You need to work together. So I think networking is huge, and please reach out to us if you want to work together and grow together, because there's plenty of success to go around, plenty of, opportunities. So we love working with new people. So, yeah.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much for coming to my podcast and sharing all this with my listeners. This was amazing advice, and I'm sure that everybody is going to take advantage of it. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Appreciate it.
It's a pleasure.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
This was Real Estate Deal Closers with Anette Talie, brought to you by Talie Investments. We hope that you enjoyed this episode. Our goal is to provide amazing value on your real estate journey. Connect online at www.TalieInvestments.com, where you can find this episode and more. Did you like this episode? Subscribe, like, and share.